Well, joining me now, as he does every week, is the foreign editor of The Australian, Greg Sheridan. Greg, thanks for your company. I'll get to this defence announcement on the Triton in a minute. But first of all, you've really gone for Richard Marles in your column today and suggested AUKUS might never materialise. Can you take us through all that?
Yeah, so Richard's a really good bloke, patriotic Australian, and we've had a nice personal relationship, but I suspect I'll fall off his Christmas card list today. He just hasn't delivered anything in defence. Look, it's very simple, Andrew. Any nation in history which has gone down the nuclear submarine route has to spend a lot more money, They're very expensive. And if you don't spend that money, but you keep your defence budget constant, you end up cannibalising all your other capabilities. Now, we've embarked on this AUKUS program, which is not going to deliver us one submarine until the 2030s. We won't get our fleet till the 2050s or 60s. And in the meantime, we're killing everything else in defence. We're not going to get the last squadron of F-35s, and the government has done nothing on the surface fleet since it came into office. Now, my mail is that the government is not even going to respond to the new surface fleet review until next year. That means, admirals without number have written about what a pathetically hopeless, inadequate surface fleet we have, much weaker than it was a generation ago. Fewer ships, fewer missile cells. We only got 3 warships in the whole Navy, the air warfare destroyers, and they are by no means heavyweights. And yet, the government has done nothing about it, absolutely nothing. And it claims that we face the most dangerous strategic circumstances in 80 years. In Parliament last week, Richard Marles thundered that, how dare the opposition say he's reduced defence spending, and he had an ABC fact check to show that that wasn't true. But when you look at the fact check, it says, yes, they are marginally increasing each year, but they are going to spend less across the forward estimates than the Morrison government had planned to spend. And yet, we're buying nuclear submarines. Well, in the physical universe, it doesn't add up. And what that means is we've got no other capabilities. We are wasting $50 billion a year to produce virtually no significant military capability.
Do you believe then the country would have been better off in a defence-wise with the coalition retaining power, or is there a certain element of yes minister to all this as well, whether it be from Treasury or Defence?
I was very, very critical of the coalition government in the last year of its office because it had been in power for 9 years and it also had delivered almost nothing. It praised itself for raising defence spending, but billions of dollars of that raised defence spending was on French submarines, which it didn't even deliver. And it couldn't, it went through Japanese submarines, French submarines, then it went down the AUKUS deal, and it was planning to get the first AUKUS sub in the mid-2040s. So it was just as bad as Labor. I'm not making a party political point here. Both sides of politics are big on announcements. They talk big. They like to think of themselves as grand strategic players. None of the defence ministers last for more than 5 minutes. They never put the money behind their announcements. Now, if you're not going to spend the money, then it's much more intelligent to be ruthless about what you're going to do. Don't go down such a grandiose path as nuclear submarines, but just produce capable warships which can defend our own waters. We've got nothing at the moment. These ridiculous Tritons, we don't have anything that can hurt an enemy. We can surveil an enemy, provided it doesn't shoot our surveillance craft down, but we don't have any ability to hit an enemy. This is a bipartisan failure of catastrophic proportions, and it's not me being captious here. We just have to ask the question, what have you done for the surface fleet since you came into office? Nothing. What have you actually done to produce a submarine since you came into office? Nothing.
Well, anyway, apart from sign some more agreements probably, but you've given me the Triton answer there on the drone. Let me ask now about the budget cuts to the space program that Ed Husic and Richard Marles have made, which I asked Mr Husic about yesterday. Do you have a view on them?
I do. So this follows on from the Triton. The Triton symbolises everything that's wrong with Australian defence. This is a program, one way and another, we've been involved in for 25 years. We've spent billions of dollars on it. We don't have one single plane. The Americans have now cancelled the program. It's super, super, super high-tech, absolutely exquisite. For that money, we could have got another squadron of fighters, which can really do some fighting. We claim under AUKUS that we're going to have this super-duper high-tech Aussie fabulous cooperation with the Americans on space, and then we cancel the industry program, which is supposed to take us into space, because for the industry minister, it's not a priority. So, you know, Marles and in some aspects, Albanese might talk about AUKUS, but it's not a priority across the rest of the government. None of the state governments are building any infrastructure for it. Nothing is actually happening, Andrew. It's all like the Roman Senate discussing how many angels can dance on the head of a needle as the barbarians invade at the city gates. It's theological discussion. Nothing's happening in the real world.
Have you had any feedback, Greg, from Richard Marles or people in the government on about your views on their lack of defence spending? Can you let us know, perhaps not even naming the source, what that feedback is, what their argument is?
Well, obviously I wouldn't disclose any private conversation. They've all been kind enough to talk to me up to this point. Maybe they won't from now on. But you can just look at their actions and see what they've decided is they've made the AUKUS agreement, and therefore the public thinks they're big on defence. They stupidly said the submarines were going to cost $368 billion. So Marles, who is a weak cabinet minister, completely destroyed in his arguments by Penny Wong in the Expenditure Review Committee and in the cabinet. They say to him, you've already got your extra big money for AUKUS, so we're not going to give you any more extra big money. He hasn't convinced the Labor Party that this is real. And then the third calculation I think they're making, which is the calculation Australian Defence always makes, is, look, in the end, doesn't matter what we do, the Americans will determine our security. Therefore, all we've got to do is put our hands up, lend the flag to the Americans, lend them our real estate, get tiny, tiny numbers of exquisite high-tech kit which we can fold into an American operation whenever there's one on, but there's nothing we can do ourselves, and that's it. So this is the kind of learned helplessness which Australian Defence has suffered from for decades, really. I don't think we've had a Defence Minister who's had a strategic concept of Australian defence since Kim Beazley. I mean, even in the Howard years, we certainly expanded a bit, but we didn't think how we could defend our own continent. And what is so disappointing is that Albanese and Marles made these magnificent speeches in opposition about all the things they were going to do: more air warfare destroyers, more missiles, more drones. We still don't have a single armed drone. There is not, in our $52 billion, we don't have one drone with a weapon on it. And they've just got into office. They've reappointed the same old lame defence leadership. It's the same old, same old, same old. And they've added this great bucket of money to spend on the AUKUS subs, which has to come away from all the other programs.
All right, Greg, thanks very much, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Andrew.